Hello, my name's Andrew Shamaskin. I'm a graduate student getting my master's in fisheries science. It's a little portion of the College of Forest Resources we have here. And I don't really like labels too much, but I guess to clarify, I'm Reformed in Judaism. My temple back home, Or Ami, which means the light of our people in Hebrew, has been operating for roughly 40 years. I'm from Richmond, Virginia, so depending on where you're from, I'm either from the South or I'm from the North, or if you're international, I'm just from the United States. I guess within Judaism, I'd say I don't practice as much as folks elsewhere might, but I went through my education into my religion, as we call it Sunday school. It's pretty mundane. You go, learn Hebrew, learn how to write it, read it, learn a few parts of the Torah. And by the way, the entire embodiment of the Jewish texts includes the, I guess you could call it the Tanakh. It's what it's typically referred to as, which includes the Torah, T, Nevi'im, which is the N, and then Ketuvim, which is the K. And you learn from all of it, but on once a week, we call it the Sabbath, Shabbat services. We go and read a portion from the Torah. We also read a portion from the Haftarah, which at this moment, because I am not a huge follower of every little bit and piece of Judaism. I can't remember exactly which book that comes from. But that being said, in my regular education, I went to, from K through 8, I went to a Montessori school, which, if you all are not familiar, is an education system founded by Maria Montessori, an Italian woman back in the 1800s. And I'm having a hard time remembering the verbatim mission of that school system, but we had students from representing cultures, countries from all over the world, and we observed a lot of different holidays that wouldn't be observed by your typical American, or I guess represented as national holidays. We have a lot more than that. And so the idea of being a global citizen was very normalized for me at an early age. And I never encountered any negativity directed at me towards Judaism or being Jewish. That didn't change a whole lot in high school, but when I started ninth grade, I noticed that there was a lot less homogenization of cultures throughout our school. There were cliques. There were plenty of people who I never interacted with in my high school. There were a lot more people that I did interact with, though, than when I was in elementary school and middle school. People did not know a whole lot about Judaism. I was the only Jewish person a lot of people knew. And teenagers can sometimes be, they haven't fully developed their brains quite yet. Folks can be less than sensitive at times and make disparaging comments they might not think are disparaging, but internalizing them can hurt a little bit. And that's something that I've noticed is shared by a lot of cultures that might not be in the majority at times. As far as some misconceptions I'd like to address, being that I was the only Jewish person a lot of people knew, to them, I was what Judaism was. Everything I did, said, practiced was what a Jewish person does. And the truth is that is a very narrow window into the world of Judaism. The fact is, Jewish culture, the Jewish religion, is as diverse as any other group. You have folks who are extremely observant. They dot their I's, they cross their T's. And then you have folks who might be Jewish in name only. And you have a lot in the middle. There are a lot of, I guess, because of that, because of what folks, the only other outlet a lot of people had to learning more about Judaism could just be if they didn't search the internet very much, if they didn't read books very much, perhaps when they turn on the TV and they see someone who's Jewish. That might be another way that they learn about it. And if they hear an opinion stated by someone who's Jewish, then in that narrow mindset where they have not been educated to the full extent, they might transpose what was said by that person and think that I automatically think that as well. And that's something that is in human nature. We like to, as humans, label everything, organize everything. Things that are diverse, that aren't pretty, bother people. And even subconsciously, everyone does it. Everyone organizes things, whether they like to or not. And I feel that to fully understand the Jewish culture, or like any minority, you need to really take the time to walk in those other people's shoes. I've been constantly told to take a side on the Israeli issue, the state of Israel, and the conflict that occurs over there. And I hear a lot of chatter from opponents saying that this is the way that it's supposed to be, and then other people say, no, this is the way it's supposed to be. And I am troubled by that because to pick a side, it seems, would be to side with only one group of people. You see, with the problem usually you have two sides, but the solution for one side is always going to not have a certain number of people's interests in mind. And that's not, if you really read through a religious text, you might find that while on one page it says one thing, there's contradictions, there's clarifications to that thing on an entirely different page. And this idea that we can't live in harmony, I feel, has been patently disproven. Looking at countries that have a melting pot, we all seem to function, we all seem to get along. There are individuals who like to see it the other way, but the fact is, as a whole, we all look like the same people. We're all a product of our environment, and that's something that it doesn't have an agenda, it just exists. And so I guess that's all I'd really like to say. There might be some other clarifications we might need, but...
Any other stereotypes? There's that money one.
I tried to stay away from a lot of things. So I'll just run through it by the numbers. Misconception I've heard, all Jewish people keep and practice kosher. That is absolutely not true. I had a sausage biscuit this morning, and it tasted delicious. There are some people who are very, very adherent to those principles, and then there are those who are on the exact opposite end of the spectrum. But to follow those is only I would call it an ancillary aspect of Judaism. Really the only principle that I see that you would need to follow in order to be Jewish is this one prayer that we say very often. It's called the Shema, And it goes, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. And that's really the only thing that unites all Jewish people, is that there's one God, and he's the creator of everything. And you can interpret that statement as you will, but all these extra things, you have to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant, or you have to be a comedian. Those are extra things that I would say are de facto outcomes. And yeah, and I guess you could tie that into the next statement that I'll make, that I've heard a lot of people saying. All Jewish people are white. That is absolutely false. If you go to Israel, you will see, I believe, most every type of Jewish person. In America, we have a lot of Ashkenazi Jewish people, which predominantly originate from Eastern Europe. And you also have Sephardic Jewish people, which come from North Africa, Western Europe. And then you have, those are the two predominant portions of people. Then you also have a ton of other different groups that come from Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, Turkey. Every country in the Middle East, Yemen, had at some point in time their own pocket of Judaism that, because of where they were, because of the local customs, they took on and they absorbed some of those aspects that are unique to that region. And then the beautiful thing about Judaism is that they absorbed all these other things, but they didn't sacrifice that core message that Judaism has, like I said before, the Shema. And so when folks move around, they bring that culture with them, and you see a lot of that in Israel. You see a lot of that in New York City as well. And so to really understand a different group of people, I challenge you to find as many documents of primary information as you can on that group of people. Talk to people. Be open-minded. But then also remember that the more you dig into that group of people, the more you're going to see everyone else as well. Humans are not that different from one another. We all are descendants of, if you ascribe to evolution, we all came from a region in Africa that I can't remember the name of. I took population genetics a year or two ago here, and the most up-to-date scientific data indicates that we all initially split maybe 180,000 years ago. That's not nearly enough generations. If you consider a generation to be 20 years for people, that's not nearly enough time, the evolutionary clock, to create differences that would be as dramatic as those that people like to portray to separate us. So that's all I really have. Yeah. That was way too long. I tend to ramble.
Spell your name so I can give you a correctly spelled lower third.
S-H-A, Andrew, you know that one. But S-H-A, M as in mother, A-S-K-I-N.